My name is Drew, and I'm the Aspiring Master, and welcome to the Aspiring Master Presents. This is a show where we talk about the meanings, misunderstandings, and insights about the important words we use and misuse on a daily basis. Really understanding what we're truly meaning when we talk allows us to convey and explain ourselves better to others. This not only allows us clearer communication so we can get what we need quicker and with less stress, but also helps us understand ourselves in more depth than we thought possible. Today on our show, I would like to welcome my special guest, Dean McDonald, a friend and another advocate for personal growth and personal awareness. Today, we'll be discussing the word should and how it should or shouldn't be used.
Ouch, the expectations are weighing on me.
Of course. So should is one of those words that I think is another one hugely important. Actually, I was thinking about the other day and I was like, I got another one. Perfect would be another one that needs to be redone. But should is so tied to our expectations and just a whole bunch of other stuff that we've got to talk about it. So Merriam-Webster Dictionary has a number of definitions here, and we will go and look at, I should probably do that. So it's used in auxiliary function to express condition. That's number one. Used in auxiliary function to express obligation, property, or expectancy, which is sort of really how we use should almost all the time. You should brush your teeth after each meal. Used in auxiliary function to express futurity. That's what it, futurity. From a point of view in the past. Also used as an auxiliary function to express what is probable or expected. There's that word, expectation. So, when we look at shoulds, we have a whole bunch of those in our societies. And should we be listening to them? I mean, what I've found with should is we have this fictional idea of what, and I think that was placed in ourselves by our parents, by our peers, of what is expected. When you're part of like a religious community or a community of any kind, really, that community has their kind of rules, and the rules are, I find, are just unspoken. So there's a lot of shoulds, what you should be doing, and a lot of shouldn'ts, what you shouldn't be doing. And I think that when we use this word, we're really saying that it's an expectation more than anything. I expect you, Dean, you should be nicer to me. It means that you aren't being nice and you are supposed to be nice. Whatever that means, nice, another word we should define. So people use that word should all the time. Like, I mean, I do. Oh, I shouldn't do that. I should do that. And I find myself saying this word everywhere. And should is just that way of saying there's an expectation of me somewhere or an expectation of you somewhere that you're not meeting, is my experience. And then the next question we ask is, what should we be doing?
All I was going to say is, when I was thinking about it, in terms of what you just said, I was putting it down, I should, or I should have. And I kind of think about that in terms of the other flip side of that is you should.
Right.
Or you should have.
Right.
You should have done that. So that's all I'm, as a past tense versus you should not have sex before marriage.
Yes.
Right.
Instead of you should. Well, I mean, you should not. I mean, and it is a past tense. It's a past tense of shall, right? Shall is the actual root word of should. It's you shall. And if it's the past tense of shall, of course, shall is an outright expectation. You shall, you are supposed to. That's what's going to happen. That is who or what you should be doing, right? And so being a past tense of shall, should, even though we're using it in the present tense, right? You should actually, or future tense, actually, in this case, we're using it as a future tense, even though it is a past tense word. We get caught up in that whole you shall. And I think that is really the definition that what we really should be doing. We're talking about should, but should is a past tense of shall, and shall means used to express what is inevitable or seems likely to happen in the future. It used to express simple futurity. I'm assuming that's the future. I don't know that way. We should probably look that up. Hey, since we're a word thing, we should look up futurity. Futurity. Time to come, the future, basically. That's the futurity. Yeah. The time to come. There we go. So now we've just learned a new word. So it's like used to express what's inevitable. It's past tense of shall. So when somebody says should, it's inevitable. You are going against really a law when you're saying you should, right? Don't you think?
Well, I think that may well depend on your relationship with, are you talking to yourself, or is someone talking to you, or are you talking to someone else? So your authority to force, you should, with an expectation that it will happen, varies pretty greatly, I would say.
Well, I agree. And the reason that I kind of go to this extreme is because my experience is the amount of disappointment that happens when you're not doing what you should in somebody else's eyes. They'll get disappointed. We have these wonderful emotions that happen. We have disappointment, which is, basically anger light. Right. And, it's like they're angry or they're frustrated, or all the anger light emotions that we have there that are basically rooted in anger. But anger is, I'm not getting what I want. And so when we understand that all of those all of those things are really tied to should, I think that when we go right down to the bottom line of why am I getting frustrated, think of the shoulds. What are the shoulds that should be happening? What are the rules that you are saying should be happening right now that are not happening? And I think that you would find that this word, and one of the reasons why I want to do the show is this word is so integral to that, that we come to the point of, and I talk about it as being rigid, and it's not even, I think it's a subconsciously rigid thing that we have. We've got these models that we have that are shoulds and shouldn'ts. The stuff that we were raised in. And ask any gay person or anybody that's a little bit different or odd, right? And I'm not talking that gay people are different or odd. They aren't. But that are sort of not part of the norm.
It can be perceived as such.
Yeah, they are perceived as, well, you should be having marital relations with somebody of the opposite gender, right? Like, I mean, so that rigid social should, thou shall, and it's set in stone, right? Like, I mean, I know that when somebody said, well, you shouldn't be doing that, right? In their mind, in that mind that's talking to me and saying, I shouldn't be doing that, that is a rigid rule that they're talking about. They wouldn't be upset if that, in their mind, that wasn't a rigid rule. Now, they wouldn't even be upset at themselves, and you were talking about this, if that wasn't a rigid rule. And if you say, well, I should be like this. I seem to remember a racquetball game where I was beating myself up because I thought I should be better than you, because you're older than me, and I was supposedly had better reflexes, but of course, like you have better reflexes because you were trained, right? So that should, I think, is more rigid rule than what you're thinking. What do you think? What do you think now?
Well, I think that we're kind of dancing around a few different pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I tend to started with, I thank you for inviting me, and I've spent some time thinking about it, and both you and I are on Noom. Not that this is a what do you call it?
Weight loss
It's a
app.
it's a weight loss app thing, and we're not trying to promote that or anything. But this says to me, I should stop eating this, or I should eat that, or I should go for a walk. I should get my 4,000 steps a day or whatever. And so in that sense, I think of I should being, can be a very positive thing.
Well, and I don't think that should, and I agree with you here. When we're looking at nuance, um, there are shoulds and shouldn'ts about shoulds and shouldn'ts, and right. I think that when you're saying should in that situation, right? Like when you set a goal, right?
Yeah.
And you say should in that situation. Now, we're so used to saying should. I personally think that we should probably use another word for that because should is really a tricky word to be using because we have so much disappointment and expectation attached to it. Having a goal and saying, um, in order to attain this goal, it has been tested that these are the things, these are the behaviors that need to happen for you to achieve this goal, or at least these are the behaviors that get to your goal best. Okay,
Right.
and so therefore you create a should or shouldn't around it. But then again, you're also creating, I think, an expectation. Now I can't say that you are, but in my experience of my own understanding of should and how I've used it in the past and still use it,
Mm-hmm.
there is usually an expectation and a disappointment if I don't.
Right.
There, if you have a goal that you don't invest a bunch of emotion in, then there's no real shoulds to it. There is I choose or I choose not to, and you
Mm-hmm.
go, yes, I'm not doing my goal. I'm not meeting my goals. It's not I should meet my goals. It's I'm not meeting my goals, right? I think that should is more of an expectational fantasy than we really are using it as.
Mm-hmm. And where I was, reaching into that, that's actually what I find, it's kind of where the next thing I was thinking about was, okay, so and I've successfully, many times, I'm sure we all have I should go for that walk. I should
Hmm.
stop, watching YouTube and go to bed, binge watching something or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And but then you go, well, I didn't. So sometimes it's yes, you did. You talked yourself into something great.
Hmm.
Then if you don't, and you're going, oh, you're waking up in the morning going, oh, I should have stopped
Hmm.
binge watching Netflix. Been there, done that. Then you feel not great in the morning. And I guess the next piece that actually has me curious, makes me think is like, okay, let's just say I should have done better
Hmm.
at racquetball.
Right.
And then the question is, to me, is you need to qualify that to yourself and say, did you do your best?
Hmm.
And if you look at your four agreements, was it your best at that time?
Hmm.
And how much do you beat yourself up when you didn't do what you should have in your
Right.
mind?
Well, and as you were talking, one of the things that occurred to me was that we should, when we express it, is already a statement of failure, right? I should have. I should be doing this. You're already saying that I'm not doing this. Do you know what I'm saying? You're saying by saying I should not watch Netflix or I shouldn't watch Netflix, and yet you are. You get up the next morning. I should have gone to bed. You're already expressing failure, and I think that there is subconsciously some of that to when we say should in any given situation. You're sitting there watching Netflix. It's a great show, and you go, I should go to bed. You're already expressing something negative. You're already expressing that you are not doing that, that you are already failing. And a lot of the times I hear people say I should be, and the most that I hear I should be are, I know that I'm not living up to my expectations. I can hear this as the subtext. I know I'm not living up to these expectations and I should do that. But there's no intention really to do that. There's sometimes you'll be able to muster the willpower to move past that. But for the most part, when I hear people say I should, my sister said it the other day. I told her how much weight I've lost. I all of that stuff, and she says, yeah, I should do that, right? And I hear that so often when people see something that they desire, right? Like, I mean, I have to tell you that when you started losing weight, I was jealous, right? You said, oh, I'm down to 225. It's awesome, right? And I was totally jealous, but I knew where my jealousy came from, right? I understood myself well enough to know, and I wasn't going, I should. I knew that I said, that's something that I would like to do. And it was a conscious choice on my part not to do that until my wife could join me with it, right? So when we're expressing should, I think, like I said, in my experience of it, most of the time, the majority of the time that I see people expressing shoulds are when they're talking about something they're not doing that they feel that they're supposed to do, and that they're choosing not to do. It's sort of a statement. I'm already failing, and I got to let these people know that I know that rule is there. And I'm going to pretend, like, I'm going to use this word to pretend like I might be doing it next week, right?
But I would still maintain that there's a little more latitude to it. Like, I'm thinking of, and I'm lucky that I feel motivated often to walk. I've got a nice area and so on. It's safe in this kind of part of the planet. So if I'm, I've had my supper, I'm reading, looking on my phone on a texting or whatever, checking my emails, and then all of a sudden I note, oh, maybe I did eat too much, maybe I shouldn't have, whatever, and I think, okay, I should go for a walk, and go, okay. So to me, it's just a series of brain chain, saying I should go for a walk and going, yeah, okay, get up and go do it.
Yeah. I'm definitely not saying that every time, right, that this happens, nor am I saying, I just find that the majority of time when I talk to people, when they're using should, they're already expressing that negative. Now, it's like I can say, like I said, I changed my verbiage around it because I found that should is more often really a fantasy rather than again, you and I have discussed this one where our respective people are disappointed in how we're behaving, right? Because we should be behaving in accordance to some fantasy character that they have in their mind. It's not us. And then what happens is we as spouses or as significant others or just as friends even will do our best to alter our normal behavior to fit into a model that somebody else has for us because, there's a part of us that says, well, yeah, she's right. I should, you know what I'm saying? I shouldn't, or whatever that is. And we identify on some level with this fantasy character. And so we're constantly trying to be something that we are. And I don't think that we even have our whole heart into being, because I don't think that there is a should to. I've got to set a goal where I'm losing weight, and I've committed to my word to myself that I am going to do my best, knowing that some days my best is good and some days my best is not good. And, good is another word we can discuss, but that's later. At least we can agree that it's beneficial, right?
Yeah.
So it's beneficial to where I want to go. I can say that I may fall off on my willpower from it, but I don't say should because there's so many shackles involved in the word. And it's it's not saying that you or anybody can't use this word differently, right? Or have a different kind of emotional meaning to it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the majority of the ways that I see people use it and the majority of the ways that I've seen myself use this word are very tied to expectation, and a lot of times other people's expectation or societal expectation as we perceive it.
Big
What do you
time.
think?
Well, and of course you raised that issue of, it's a, when we talk about I should
Mhm.
or I should have,
Mhm.
that's potentially something I have more control over, theoretically, right? But it's a whole different kettle of fish when I say you should have, pointing at you even.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and then it gets messy, right? I
Well,
think it's very messy.
Well, I mean, this actually ties into one of the episodes that I've already recorded, friendship, and because expectation sort of creeps into everything, and especially when you're dealing with people um, that are in your life. I mean, we have friends, we make friends. The reason that we have those friends is because they either share values or they accept us for who we are, as opposed to a fictional character that they have in their mind of what we should be. Now, it's and and that's not even true because I think that we really categorize friends into that expectational shoulds to a great degree. I know that I had a friend of mine that became my friend because I showed up even when I was sick, right? To help
Right.
him move, right? And so when I showed up, in his mind that clicked. That was like, oh, look, here's somebody that will go out of their way for me, or and that's an expectational should of what I should have been doing to be a part of your life, right? So we've all got those expectations, and there are those shoulds, the fictional characters that we have. I mean, relationships are resplendent with them, especially male female, right? If you've ever talked to anybody that says, "Oh, that's a deal breaker," right? And anybody that uses the word deal breaker already has a fictional idea of who they want to be with in their mind. I mean, my wife, deal breaker, no hair, right? In her mind, that was a deal breaker before I came into her life. And then after I came into her life, she said, "Oh, right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the person. It's not the hair. It's not so we do have those fictional shoulds and shouldn'ts, and this program isn't saying, oh, I'm going to chastise you because you've got expectation on your shoulds and this is about awareness, right? This is about if you have the information, you have a chance to change it if that's what you want to do.
Right.
But if you don't have any information, you can't change a thing because you have no idea that that's happening. Right? Yeah. Ignorance in that case is kind of bliss, but then they're wandering around their lives going, why does everybody hate me? Because because they don't have the tools to understand, or they don't have that reflection to understand what it is they're actually doing. Right. Not that they should, but
well, it's interesting too when we're talking about, when I'm using it as a personal reference, I should have. And then, of course, throughout my thinking about this, I keep thinking of, Yoda says something like, do or do not. There is no try.
There is no try. And that's it falls into that category too. Yeah.
Right. So maybe I'll think about that when I think to myself, I need to go for a walk. Go for a walk. Do it or do not. But just, don't dwell on it, just do it.
Well, I mean, remember, and when you say should, what I hear is you say, I should go for a walk, right? I'm already hearing a judgment, like a condemnational judgment to a degree. Once somebody says that, I hear a condemnational judgment in it. And it's not
right.
It's not overt. It's not, they're little ones. They're just tiny ones, right? Tacked to the end of that. You know, that's whether it's somebody in your back of your brain is, you're getting too fat and lazy. You should be going out there. And it's like, yeah, yeah, but I'm really tired. And you've got that internal dialogue going on a subconscious level. And you're going, yeah, I should do that. Right. But listen to the tone of my voice when I say that. Yeah, I should. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
already down. You're
Yeah.
already beating yourself up. You're already in that fight and already feeling bad about yourself. It's kind of a buy-in to depression, whether we,
Yeah.
and it's it's so insidious. It's so quiet, and a lot of the times it's so little, right? It's just a little bit, right? It's that little bit of guilt or that little bit of shame that you have attached
Mm-hmm.
to the fact that you're not going out and walking instead of like, I mean, the difference being is if you say that to yourself, Dean, right? Like you're like, had a nice 800 calorie meal, yeah, I should go out for a walk to get that off, right? Continue going on, yeah, you should really go out for a walk. Yeah, all of a sudden it becomes this insidious thing, like somebody nagging at you, right? And you know how tough it is to get past when people are nagging at you. That's you nagging at yourself, um,
Mm-hmm.
to a degree.
Sometimes it
Um,
works.
oh, I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I just think it's unhealthy. I don't
Yeah.
think that it's a healthy. So here, I was going to actually give you a difference. I said, so you eat that thing, and it's like, yeah, I should go out and do that, right? As opposed to, eat that and you're going, yeah, I'm going to go out for a walk. There is no should there. You're not trying to motivate yourself. You just do it. And that should thing is, I don't think it's really good for us. I really don't. I think that because there is some condemnational judgment attached to it to a degree, and it's like I said, by the way people say it. They say it in a lower register on their voice, their body language changes. They don't even know they're doing it. They have no clue that that's what's happening. But if instead you said, yeah, I ate that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. You just schedule it for 10 minutes from now because I'm not feeling up to it right this second. And you just do it, as opposed to, again, it's a Yoda
Mm.
thing. What Yoda says is, do or do not, there is no try, right? And when you put that onto should, do or do not, there is no should. Because when you express try is an expression of failure as well. It's like I can throw, and the example that gets thrown around in the circles is you throw a pencil down and say, okay, try and pick that up. And you pick it up, and he says, no, you picked it up, you didn't try, right? Because try is an expression of failure, right? It is, I need to do something, but, right?
Yeah.
And I think that should falls into that category. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. So I'm in a newer relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that sometimes I will throw it out there as kind of I feel like I should go for a walk. Are you interested?
Right.
Instead of just making the decision, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't come with me, and I think that impacts me in some of my terminology.
Right. Well, I mean, not that it should or shouldn't, but expectation is probably one of the biggest sources of disappointment in our lives.
Right.
And should is really tied to a lot of expectation in our lives as well, right? I think that, for me, I know that my parents used should a lot. You should be doing this, right? As opposed to, if you want to get to that goal, this would probably be best to do, right? As opposed to, you should be. That seemed like an expectation on their part rather than a way to guide me towards where I wanted to go. Now, that's having said that, I don't blame my parents for that, nor do I blame anybody else. We grew up in a society where this was the norm, and we are, I think, at this point, just starting to wake up from that. And there are people out there that investigate internally in themselves and find out stuff like this to be able to share it with the 10 people that watch the show, right? So
I think you're beating the queue. They always say they have 9 listeners.
yeah, really. Okay, whatever. I'm hoping for 10 anyways. Expectation and should are so closely
Huge.
tied. So
Totally
closely
huge.
tied. And so is condemnational judgment. I mean, if we're not meeting our shoulds internally, whether that's because again, when we talk about it, I say when you say should, you've just you're talking about a fictional character because you're talking about you've already failed to be that fictional character. Um, Instead of it would be best for me to move towards
Mm-hmm.
that direction, I'm saying, well, I should. That means I already haven't, and I'm already judging myself somewhere. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and again, judgment notwithstanding, I'm already condemning myself. I'm already feeling, I would say, ashamed. Not necessarily guilty. Guilty is when you do something that you know is not you and you want to move past and change. Shame is I'm what was it? How did Brene Brown put those two? She said guilt is I've done something wrong, and shame is I am wrong. And one is you see a model of yourself that you choose that you want to be, right? So we've got this
Mm-hmm.
goal of Dean, right? Like, or Drew in this case. I've got this goal of where I want to be in my life, right? Or the type of person that I want to be. And so when I start doing things and I do this and I go, I don't want to be that. I'm going to choose something different, right? Instead of saying, I shouldn't be that, right? No, I'm
Mm-hmm.
accepting the fact that I am that at this moment. Again, love Don Miguel Ruiz and his 4 agreements when he talks about to do your best. And to do your best means that you are going to fail to meet whatever your best goal is of the day. You may fail and you may not. As
Mm-hmm.
long as you are doing the best that you can with who you are in this moment. And that requires you to accept who you are in this moment. Should means you don't accept who you are in this moment. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that translation. And I know that I'm really kind of glossing over the 10% positive that I see in shoulds, right? I'm totally over exaggerating, right? Like, I mean, there's probably more like 30 or 40% of
Yeah.
positive in should, but I just find the majority is not a good thing to use to move forward and to really accept and embrace who you are right now, because you can't move and change until you do. I mean, you can pretend to. I think that
Mm-hmm.
should does that. I think you go, oh, I should do that, and so you motivate yourself, and yeah, you know what? The difference between a walk when you said I should and you go out and do it, and a walk that you said, yeah, I'm doing that in 10 minutes. There's a complete different emotional um, commitment to those walks, right? I can feel it when I talk about it. I can feel it when I say it. One is 100% I'm in who I am where I am, and I'm moving. So when I go
Mm-hmm.
out on that walk, I'm probably pushing myself a little bit further. I'm probably challenging myself. I'm probably, like there is a confidence to that. The other walk is I'm walking, I'm plodding, and I'm getting this done.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a reluctance to be there, and I think that is where should kind of fails us in that goal process.
Well, and as you're talking about that, I'm thinking that I say, well, it's interesting. Like I feel like when I say I should, I'm putting an expectation of myself. I'm a little afraid to commit,
Mm-hmm.
because then if I commit, but then I don't do it, my guilt or my shame
Shame, right?
is greater
Yes. The
than if I just
disappointment.
say,
Yeah.
I probably should, but if I don't,
I'm okay.
whereas
Right.
it won't hurt me inside too much.
Right.
Whereas if I say I'm going to, and then, I totally don't,
Well,
that's,
but I agree, and I think that there is a really good conversation there, um,
mm,
because we often get caught in that. What you're talking about is I don't want now should is now I'm afraid to commit. Now I'm attaching another fear to should. You know what I'm saying? Before I
mm-hmm,
even go there, I'm afraid. And so now we're stepping into uh, whatever that walk, right? With depression, fear, trepidation, all of these things attached to that whole commitment to should. Now, the first instance that I was talking about was there was no shoulds in it.
mm-hmm,
You say I'm going to go in 10 minutes, right? And 10 minutes comes, maybe something comes up, or maybe my knee's twinging and I choose not to that at that point. There is decisiveness in saying yes and no. And there in saying I instead of saying I'm should, I just go, you know what? This meal is weighing a little too heavy on me. I really don't feel it right now. I'm going to stop.
mm-hmm.
And that's my choice. Understanding that that choice it branches out into a whole bunch of other things, right? That you have to accept about that choice in order to make it. Now, here's where most people don't understand how choice works. And so I'm going to explain this a little bit, is when you make a decisive choice, so I'm going to use a relationship for an example. When
Mm-hmm.
I get into a relationship, when I got into a relationship with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, let's make this permanent, right? And she said, okay. I understood the choice that I was making. The choice that I was making was that when I get in a relationship with this person, I accept all her quirky behaviors, all the things that she is, not all of the things that I wish she was, all of her attachments, her parents, her cousins, her little nephews, her cats, her fetishes. Like, I mean, she likes socks, and so we have like 5 billion socks or something, right? Her maybe she's a hoarder, and I mean, all of these minutia of things based on this choice, I have to look at and say, I accept what comes because I trust myself to be able to handle what's going on. Um,
Mm.
every single choice we make is like that, though. And we don't really recognize that. And so when we're saying should, there's a wishy-washiness to it, right? There's like
Mm-hmm.
hopefully there's a back door, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
instead of being decisive and saying, I'm going to go for that walk in 10 minutes, and you make that choice in that moment, you go, I'm making this choice. And in 10 minutes, I'm going to go for a walk. So 10 minutes from now, it's like, my tummy's upset, my knee's hurting. And maybe this is an excuse, but that's okay. I make
Yeah.
this choice, understanding the vista of I may gain 2 pounds. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? I understand that vista, and I accept that as what I'm doing right now, and I'm just going to continue moving on. There's no beating yourself up. There's no depression. There's nothing to that once you accept all the consequences of the choices you're making. But until then, you can say, well, I should, right?
Okay.
And yeah,
That's great. And I like you must have had a really big meal if 3,500 calories equals 1 pound.
yeah,
Gain
whatever,
2 pounds. Anyway,
whatever.
I'm just laughing. It's my recent
Yeah.
reading, right? Um, and I'm kind of looking at some of this, because one of the things that's been popping through my head throughout this too is saying that if I'm saying I should,
Mhm.
I will use the term I need to.
And need is another one that has a lot of emotional baggage attached to it, and huge amount of expectation. Need. I have to. I need to. And the truth is, you don't need to anything. You can say, In accordance to my goal, these are the things that will move me towards my goal faster. And so this is what will work for me. I don't need to do it, but I choose. I always use choose instead of need, because then it makes me responsible as opposed to somebody out there that says that I need that, right? And I'm not really sure how that translates for everybody. I know that it translates for me as, no, I choose. There's nobody out there choosing. I'm not going by some kind of formula here that says I need this, because I don't need it. I don't have an emotional yearning that says I must go. And, because it can be even in stating an addiction to something. And, and if it's something that you choose to do, it's empowering. If it's something that you need to do, it's kind of disempowering, I think. And I think that when we change those words, and you have to discover that within yourself. I mean, this isn't something that I go, oh, this is just a ground rule. And there's people out there that really have need dialed in their own language to mean I choose, right? So I'm talking in general, my experience is, and my experience with myself on the way that it was used with me as a kid, the way that I used it as I was growing, and the yearning that was attached to the need to do that. It's insane because, and I'm going to say this, take a look at that word that you just used with your partner and find out what attachments are attached to that word need and the way that you said it. What are the attachments that you have in that? I would like you to come for a walk with me. I would like you, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you may be saying there that isn't being said, but is attached to that whole need idea, right?
Well, and I was thinking that from my, reflect back, and I wasn't, thinking about it a lot when I did it. I was just basically, in a way, saying I'm going to,
right,
instead of saying I should,
right.
I'm using a stronger that I feel I need to do this,
right,
and I'm just letting you know.
Right, but imagine that stronger word that when after we're done, you're so emotionally exhausted, right? That you hypothetically emotionally exhausted, right? So you're just exhausted. You're just like, oh, we've been through the ringer. We just did all of this stuff. I've got a bunch of processing I want to do, and I don't really want to do it while I'm walking. And so now I'm not going to go for a walk. Yeah, well, there's that part of your mind that's going, yeah, but you need to. You need to go for a walk. Oh, all right. I'll just go for a walk. Now you're going for a walk and you don't really want to go for a walk. And again, like I said, I'm using extreme examples here, but I think that in order for us to really start to understand these words and the amount of emotional attachment that we place on them subconsciously, I have to sort of go that devil's advocate direction and say, there's a lot of this going on. Right? I know that there's people out there. I'm sure that there's some spiritual guru out there or some guy or girl that really has it dialed in that can say the word need and not have any emotional attachments to it and actually mean that they are choosing, right? But I know that a lot of the people that work on their words change their verbiage. Because whether we like it or not, societally, that word has a lot of emotional attachment to it and a lot of expectation, right?
Well, it's interesting that I was, you had suggested I watch, and I've watched some of your shows, of course, and then I watched one more recently, and that was the one you were doing on need.
Right.
And so it's very interesting when you think of, air,
right,
water, food, certain amount of warmth.
Well, and you need companionship too, right? Like, I mean, we being social creatures, you really actually physically need it. To be isolated means that you have to have a ball with a big handprint on it in order to be able to be sane. And thanks Tom Hanks for acting in that movie. some castaway there. But it's we have that need. Barring that, anything that we use that word for, we're talking about some kind of emotional longing or even an emotional addiction, really, to some
Mm-hmm.
degrees.
Mm-hmm.
It's I know that when it comes to should in past relationships, um, there was a lot of shoulds. Now, I didn't really come up with the concept of the fictional Drew until actually just recently. I mean, it's always been at the back of my mind. I've always understood that there was an illusion involved with the
Right.
shoulds.
Right.
But it was never something that was on my brain um, when I was in my last major relationship, and the amount of nagging and all of the things that my partner was being really really upset about, and it didn't dawn on me that it was because I wasn't living up to her shoulds.
Mm.
And it, when I realize how many shoulds we have in relationships, uh, and what kind of emotional expectations and emotional needs are placed upon them,
Mm.
um, that it it really kind of kicked me, and said, "Hey, wake up here. Should is something that is really can be a hugely detrimental thing in our relationships, especially
Mm.
in our relationships,
Big time.
but especially towards ourselves." Um, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. We just played disc golf the other day, and I had one of the best games, actually probably the best game I've ever played. And but I think back on all of the games that I played before that, and even to some degree, some of the shots that I made in that game, and going, that part of me that said, "Oh, you should be better than this. You could get that 9 out of 10 times. Why didn't you get it this time? You should be. You should be." I've pasted my own self-esteem up against a model that even if I had achieved it once before, right? It now has become the bar of my shoulds. And when I don't meet that bar, it's really devastating, not only on your game, if you're playing a game and you have those shoulds happening, but just on your self-esteem. Like, it's just hit after hit after hit of, you
Mm-hmm.
should be doing better.
A friend of mine basically blames the failure of their parents' marriage,
Hmm.
and they got together young, super attracted, broke up, got back, kids, broke up, got back, was on expectations
Hmm.
from one of them on the other, and the other
Right.
one continually never met the expectations and crumbled, crumble, right?
Hmm.
The relationship,
Well,
brutal.
and that is exactly where I see shoulds, really contributing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that I I should or shouldn't be whatever, and so therefore I continually try to force myself into a mold that somebody else has of what I should be. And so, but then I'm driving myself batty, right? Like, I'm just like, I can't believe that I'm doing this. And it's just like, even though I know this is good for me, right? For whatever, however we judge that criteria. But it's, eventually you just can't do it. I mean, it's no different than I've seen relationships that are, like 20 years, and the wife or the husband is carping on about something that never changes, right? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it never changes. I know that I tell my wife this. I said, "Honey, we've been together for 12 years." I said, "In that time, has this ever changed? Right? Have I ever altered my behavior here? Right? Like, does it look to you as if this is going to change anytime soon?" And she's like, "Oh, well, yeah, well, but you should." No, no, no. you're not hearing me. I said, I understand that you're frustrated because you don't want to, whatever it is that you don't want to do here, right? I get that. But it's not like you can't place that on me, right? I'm going to be messy in the kitchen. It's never going to change unless it does, right? Unless one day you stop harping on me about it and I just do it, right? But whatever that looks like. But I've seen marriages that are 30 years old where they're going over the same ground over and over again as if something should change. Actually, I remember my stepdad, and my stepdad, my stepdad, funnily enough, was polygamous. So we had a number of different mothers. Actually, you met this one, Paula, at one of my birthdays. And so Paula was there. She was painting a picnic table in her backyard, right, in a place she owned. And Jim was there, who's a general contractor, my stepdad, general contractor, and he teaches everybody how to do everything, right? And he's meticulous about it. And anyway, so, she's painting it and he says, oh, you didn't do this and it's wet weather. And he's just laying into her about this, about how to paint, right? And I'm standing beside there and I don't know, I must have been in my mid-20s. And I looked at him and I just went, walked away, right? And Paula said to me later, she said, as soon as you did that and turned around, he stopped. I just stopped. And you could tell he was thinking.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? He said, if you're not doing it by now, you're never going to do it. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he apologized to her, right? And because that was my assessment of it, that's why I did what I did. It's just like, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because if you told her 3 or 4 times and it's still not happening, it's never going to happen. So release that should, but people hold on to those should models for so long. And it really, if your relationship's not a resilient one, it starts to deteriorate, eat it away at the sides. Because then not only that, there more shoulds appear, right? And more reasons why I shouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like you have this model in your mind that says my relationship should be, right? Again, we're using the word should, so it's a fantasy, should be this. And well, I'm happy, 65% of the time. I should be happy 75% of the time, right? Or I should be, but really the shoulds are, I should be happy 95% of the time, right? But we'll put up with a bunch of it, right? Like we'll just put up, we have tolerance. And so we'll put up with some of it. But that should, it continually erodes the relationship until we gather so much information of, well, he's not, or she's not meeting my expectations there, and she's not doing this, and she's not doing that, and well, they used to rub my feet, they just try and avoid me now, and and that's all of this fictional should character is killing the relationship, as opposed to how can I take a look at Dean or take a look at Drew and say, how can I accept all that person is in my life? Well, first off, I think that we should release the shoulds. We should release the shoulds. I think that in order to be able to do that, should would be a good thing to move. And in removing that, we stop doing the needs. I don't need somebody to complete me. I'm pretty complete myself. I just enjoy, one of the reasons why I have a great time with people is because I have a great time with people, because I love spending time with these individuals. If I'm not spending time with them, I'm not pining after it, And that's the difference between me and a lot of people is I don't go, oh, Dean never calls me. And that whole need is not attached to our relationship.
Right.
It's when I'm with you, I'm with you. I'm having fun. We're doing a good thing. I totally enjoy it. I'm grateful that it's happening. But if it's not happening tomorrow, I'm not going, where's Dean? Why isn't he calling me?
Yeah.
He should be.
One thing we should circle back to,
Yep.
like right in the beginning, I was talking about talking to myself.
Right.
I should go for the walk. I should paint the fence or repaint the fence, whatever, right? And we're talking about expectations. We're talking about how expectations can sabotage the relationship.
Right.
So how does that apply when I have expectations on myself? I should have, I should have. And yet I can't just break up with a person.
Right.
Now I have to live with myself, and I have all these shoulds.
But why do you, the question is what are your shoulds and why are they created? The questions that you get to ask yourself is, okay, the should is, when we're talking about shoulds, should be a flag. Should be a flag. Should is a flag that says I have possibly unrealistic expectations, but at least expectations of what is supposed to be happening, right? Okay, why do I have those expectations? What are those expectations? What are the shoulds that I'm doing? And is that me? Is that who I wish to be? Then you have a goal. Here's a goal. My goal is to be the best Drew that I could possibly be. Now I define that as anybody defines themselves, right? Like we can go on popular religious ideals. We could go on popular, societal ideals, however you choose to define yourself. Am I matching the goal? But instead of beating myself up because I'm not matching the goal, it's like I can say this and I can take a realistic look at myself and say, I should be, wait, hold on, should, nice flag. Okay, wait a minute. Why should I, right? That would be the question. Why should I? And what should I, right? Like these are all questions when you have the idea of should going through your head.